Welcome to Table for 92, element number 79, gold. It's number 79 because it has exactly 79 protons within its nucleus. For gold, we're cooking up some white gold, which is the extremely calorie-dense pemmican with black bear fat, ground-up venison jerky, pine nuts, and dried blueberries. It's an old native nutrition bar that was absolute survival food for the hunter-gatherer peoples that occupied the Great Plains, and it was later co-opted by the European colonizers. And it was a very important food during the many gold rushes that took place during the 1800s. They usually used buffalo fat, but my butcher just gave me some black bear fat, and I use this stuff for all sorts of purposes, including pemmican. Finally, gold. It's the metal that drives people crazy. Gold fever, baby. But why do we love gold so much? Like, yeah, sure, it's unreactive and it has beautiful luster. It's soft and it can be easily made into jewelry. But, you know, I think there's something deeper going on with gold in our psyche. So let's get into it. And yeah, by the way, I'm not going to be cooking with gold leaf. I firmly believe that is dumb. It's a waste of money. It's a silly way to impress people with food. Just cook amazing food. You shouldn't have to put gold leaf on top for any conceivable reason. Plus, it doesn't even have a taste. So yeah, it's dumb. Gold doesn't belong on food. I mean, the only thing it can really do is make your doo-doo sparkle, and that's it. First, you got a big hunk of black bear fat from your butcher, which I'm sure everyone has access to. So you want this thing frozen because it becomes more slippery than the light poles in Philly after they win the Super Bowl once it warms up a little bit. Now you're gonna have some like excess pieces of meat. You wanna cut that off, clean off all the hair you can find. And I like to slice it like long and thin and then just put it right into a meat grinder. So this has happened a bunch of times when I'm like working with bear fat. Farmers will shoot at bears with bird shot to like scare them off. So like working with bear fat, like I will come across like BBs in there. So you got to be careful about that because you don't want that getting into the fat or, you know, like through the grinder or anything like so. Yeah, watch out for that while you're rendering out the fat. So gold is one of the few metals that is found in a pure state in nature. I think that's one of the reasons it captivates our minds so much. If you happen to live somewhere like California or Australia, I think there's always that thought in the back of your head. You know, it's like, hey, maybe one day I'll be hiking around, I'll find a nugget and it'll change my life. I mean, that thought process, right? That has caused some of the biggest migrations in human history, all these gold rushes, right? Archaeologically speaking, the earliest known gold artifacts actually come from Bulgaria, where there's a lot of pure gold nuggets found even still today. The earliest artifact is a gold bead that has been dated to 6,500 years ago. This is absolutely fascinating to me because it doesn't seem like it's quite old enough, right? Gold nuggets are found all over the world, and humans have always been inquisitive creatures, right? And have always wanted to make themselves look more beautiful, right? I mean, we still do that today. Remember in like 2012 when everybody had feathers in their hair for that summer? Still happens. So we know like very ancient humans have had like decorative artifacts like necklaces and beads and stuff like for hundreds of thousands of years. So I can imagine like a hunter-gatherer 30,000 years ago finding a gold nugget, thinking it was cool, maybe even using it as like a slingshot because of how heavy it is, putting it on a necklace. You know, I mean, if NFL players can run around like wearing a pound of gold around their necks, I could see a hunter-gatherer doing that too. Or like even further back, like Neanderthals, we know they decorated themselves and decorated their graves. 50,000 years ago, maybe Neanderthal finds a gold nugget and, you know, buries it with a deceased loved one. We know they had grave goods and things like that. So like, I wouldn't be surprised if that has happened like one day. I mean, 6,500 years ago for the first gold artifact, like we were well on our way living in sedentary lifestyles, right? Growing our own food, building cities. So there have been other gold artifacts out there, you know, still to be discovered. I just think 6,500 years ago is not old enough for the first gold artifacts. Okay, so once the fat is rendered out, it's about like 30 minutes on the grill. I just spoon out the stuff into a mason jar, filtering out the chicklins. It's like that little part that doesn't render, and you just fill up the mason jars, and that's the white gold right there. I mean, I don't think you could have traded a pound of gold for a pound of bear fat back in the day, but in the middle of winter in the mountains in the 1800s, this stuff was considered just as valuable as gold for all humanity. People that live in colder climates always struggle during winter with malnutrition, and a lot of that is a lack of fat in their diets. Animals put on a lot of fat during the summer and fall. specifically to be able to survive winter. If you're a hunter-gatherer, it's the same thing, but we can't pack on fat the way a bear does, so we have to hunt down animals with fat deposits if we want to survive. Been like that basically up until the last couple generations of humanity. Before the discovery of like oil and the internal combustion engine, I have to say the search for gold is probably the most important driver of human exploration in history. It makes people go crazy, you know, gold fever. That's why they call it that. They go nuts. Here is just a short list of human migrations in the search for gold. In ancient Egypt, we know from hieroglyphics that gold was an extremely important part of negotiating with neighboring kingdoms. I mean, we have writings from King Tushratta of Mitanni, it's like in modern day Syria and Turkey, pleading for more gold from the Egyptian pharaoh, telling him like in a letter, he says, gold is more plentiful than dirt in Egypt, please may I have some more, you know? We have writings from Herodotus in ancient Greece detailing gold mining and maybe even the first gold rush. You have Great Zimbabwe, one of the greatest African civilizations, basically built upon the gold that was found in placer deposits on their land. Then, you know, you fast forward to the European colonization of the Americas. Christopher Columbus wrote extensively about the small amounts of gold in Hispaniola, where he and his men enslaved and killed tens of thousands of indigenous peoples in their quest to find gold. You know, that was the main driver. He wanted to find gold so he could attack the Holy Land and take it back from the Turks. But it was all gold. That's what they were looking for. And unfortunately, the Spaniards and Portuguese and others, they mostly melted down all of these really important gold artifacts from the indigenous people that they stole and sent it back to Spain to fund all those wars in Europe. Oh yeah, and then of course, heck, you got Jamestown in the early 1600s, right? The reason the English colonists all almost died and had to cannibalize each other in that first harsh winter is because they spent all their time digging for gold instead of growing crops. So the first modern gold rush happened in North Carolina. That directly led to the Indian Removal Act that forced tens of thousands of indigenous people off their lands and forced west of the Mississippi because they found gold there. The famous California gold rush, right? That brought people from all over the world to California. And again, the slaughter of indigenous people on an industrial scale. It was absolutely terrible. So yeah, you've got the same thing happening in the Yukon, Colorado, Montana, Australia, Finland, South Africa, New Zealand, Russia. All those places had gold rushes in the 1800s and 1900s. They all ended up with the forced removal of native peoples. Again, I cannot think of any other substance except for oil that has caused so much conflict. I mean, gold drives people insane. But what is it? Is it the beauty of gold? Is it the fact that it doesn't rust? Does it seem like you've captured a bit of the sun when you get a piece of gold, right? You know, gold was often associated with the sun in ancient times. They're both yellow, just as silver was associated with the moon. But you know, gold, it's like the promise of a better life. That's why people in the ancient world would give gold for the construction of religious temples. Half of the stuff Indiana Jones was, you know, stealing were gold artifacts, right? They're gold religious artifacts. The golden monkey skull, the Ark of the Covenant, the Cross of Coronado, famously not the Holy Grail. Remember that dude turned into a skeleton drinking from the wrong vessel?
It's more beautiful than I'd ever imagined.
But he was a Nazi, so like it's fine.
He chose poorly.
Gold itself represents a better life, to the point millions of people throughout history have completely dropped everything to find it and risk an almost guaranteed injury and death along the way. I mean, Oregon Trail, right? Everyone's dying of like syphilis and rattlesnakes and stuff, but you know, they were looking for gold out west. Last step of the pemmican, take your jerky, which you want to be extra dry, and grind that into as much of a powder as you possibly can. The pine nuts and the blueberries, I like to grind into like a more coarse grind, and you mix that with the bear fat. I like a little more jerky than anything else. I think it helps with the integrity of the pemmican. I'll package them in butcher paper and put them in the fridge. In cold weather, this stuff has a shelf life of years. There it is, gold, the most sought after metal in the history of humanity. Drives people crazy, this stuff. And the most sought after food in a hunter-gatherer winter. White gold with blueberries, pine nuts, and venison. It just drives people crazy. Not the pemmican, gold. This stuff is like the nastiest chewy bar you'll ever have. Not bad, actually. If I was starving, I would welcome that meal. Absolutely. Thank you. See you next time. This is a cool show, right? You like this show? Just click that subscribe button. Just clickety click.